Hi guys, I'm Michael J. Vargas and I would like to present to you the QMS principle number 4, which is the process approach with the topic of process benchmarking. So what is benchmarking? It is a method for identifying and importing best practices in order to improve performance. It is the process of learning, adapting, and measuring outstanding practices and processes from any organization to improve performance. So why benchmark? To identify opportunities to improve performance, to learn from others' experiences, to set realistic but ambitious targets, to uncover strengths in one's own organization, to better prioritize and allocate resources. So, exploring the different types of benchmarks. First, the internal benchmarking. It compares performance, processes, and practices against other parts of the business. For example, benchmarks could be used to compare process in one retail store with those in another store in the same chain. Next, the external benchmarking. It's sometimes described as competitive benchmarking, compares business performance against other companies. Often these external companies are peers or competitors, but that's not always the case. For example, you can use benchmarking to compare performance, processes, and practices across different industries. So there are three ways to use benchmarking. Benchmarking, whether internal or external, it is used in three ways. They are process benchmarking. This is all about better understanding your processes, comparing performance against internal and external benchmarks, finding ways to optimize and improve your processes. The idea is that by understanding how top performers complete a process, you can find ways to make your own processes more efficient, faster, and more effective. Strategic benchmarking. This compares strategies, business approaches, and business models in order to strengthen your own strategic planning and determine your strategic priorities. This idea is to understand what strategies underpin successful companies, and then compare these strategies with your own to identify ways you can be more competitive. Performance benchmarking. This involves collecting information on how well you're doing in terms of outcomes and comparing these outcomes internally or externally. This can also refer to functional performance benchmarking, such as benchmarking the performance of the HR team or the marketing. So, what are some different types of benchmarking? Best practices. This is a benchmark report where companies choose to look at a company or companies that they aspire to be like. By choosing companies that are on the leading edge of the industry, they can identify best practices that help improve their own company. Next is the peer benchmarking. This is a benchmark report where companies choose to look at other businesses very similar to themselves. This allows companies to make sure they are staying competitive with similar businesses. SWOT. This is a type of benchmarking report where companies gather data by looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to help understand their climate. Collaborative benchmarking. This is benchmarking as a part of a group. Many industries have associations they can join. These collaborative associations allow for members to provide information to the association. The association can then provide benchmarking and best practices reports for the membership. Why you might want to consider benchmarking in your organization. Each of these different ways of benchmarking have one key goal in mind: to identify gaps in performance and uncover opportunities to improve, whether that means making processes more efficient, reducing costs, increasing profits, boosting customer satisfaction, or whatever. Ultimately, what drives companies to benchmark is the need for improvement. So whether you want to simply compare your internal performance, catch up to a competitor, better understand and track your peers, or become a market leader in your industry, benchmarking can be an incredibly useful tool. There are 6 general steps to benchmarking. First, decide what to benchmark. Second, understand current performance. Third, plan. Fourth, study others. 5, learn from the data. 6, use the findings. So first, deciding what to benchmark is to think about the mission and critical success factors, to decide the scope, to devise charts that will pinpoint the exact problem, to decide on a numerical measure to show improvement. Second, for the understanding current performance, understand and document current processes, form a benchmarking team, decide on a way to numerically measure findings. Third is the planning. So decide what type of benchmarking to perform, internal, competitive, or process. Choose the type of data to be collected. Devise a method of collection. Identify which organizations to use as your benchmark. Make a timetable to adhere to for each task. Have a desired output for the industry. The fourth one is the studying others. Use internal sources, apply data in the public domain, utilize original research, combining all or some of these. So the fifth one is the learning from the data. Is there a gap between the organization's performance and the performance of the best-in-class organization? What is the gap? How much is it? Why is there a gap? What does the best-in-class do differently that is better? If best-in-class practices were adopted, what would be the resulting improvement? Studies can reveal 3 outcomes. The negative gap. External process better than internal processes. Parity. Process performance approximately equal. Positive gap. Internal process better than that found in external organization. At least 2 ways to prove a superior practice. Analyze quantitatively. Summary measures and ratios. Activity costs, return on assets, or customer satisfaction levels. Market analysis. Does the market prefer one process over another? Price outside services. And the sixth one is the using the findings. The next gap is to repeat the benchmarking process. The benchmarking process must be used continuously to pursue emerging new ideas. And that ends my presentation. So you can check these sites below for your reference. So thank you guys, and I hope you learned something from me. Thank you.